Hello and welcome to another spooky Saturday. I can't guarantee that I will do these all the time, but I will try, especially if I can get out and have a walk or if I'm away. Now I'm coming to you this week from Glastonbury. I've come away to my caravan home here and I thought that I would come on for a quick chat and tell you an experience that happened, which is quite a common one. And the reason I want to talk about this, I'm doing some research into this particular area and I've been listening to podcasts about it, and I have had experience of it, and I know many people have. And this is a story that was told to me by my late husband many years ago, and up until within the weeks of him passing, which was now 5 years ago, he was adamant that this had happened and there was a witness. So it does beg the question whether this is something that is otherworldly or it is part and parcel of what the dream projects, and can that then be projected out for other people to see, a bit like a cinema. So I'm going to talk about the what is the Night Hag, or the Hag demon. There are many names for this particular demon, and it's usually she, and it's usually a she. She's usually comes in the night when you're asleep, and it's a horrible feeling. Skeptics say and scientists say it's a result of sleep paralysis. Now that might well be the case, but the Night Hag is an elderly woman, very old, very wrinkled, long white hair that's dressed in black. Now, if any of you have seen the film franchise Insidious, particularly the first Insidious, it looks a bit like the Night Hag out of the film Insidious. So what is the Night Hag? In mythology, what are her roots? Some say her roots go back to Lilith, the first woman. Scientists tend to link her with sleep paralysis. Different cultures around the world tend to have the same experience, the same entity, and whether this is some kind of folk memory, as in collective unconscious, I don't know. But it is interesting that regardless of creed, culture, religion or race, many people have had this same experience of sleep paralysis and the feeling of being restricted by an elderly, an old hag, and I hate to use that term, but this old hag sitting on the chest, restricting the breathing and the movement. But what is the old hag's story? That would be interesting to find out. And that's kind of where I want to do this research. Where did she originate? Was it Lilith? I mean, Lilith was the first woman who wouldn't submit to Adam, and she was of childbearing age. Could she be some kind of succubus? And where does she appear in ancient history? These are points I'm going to look into. And recent history, I'm wanting to know her story. Why is she an old hag? Why does she come with this sort of portent of doom around her? It's kind of like trying to say doom, because it's not a nice feeling. You get this sleep paralysis. You're awake but you can't move. You see this hooded or clothed old hag in the room that's in black, or she's seated on your chest. Now I'm going to say here, not everybody sees an old woman. Some might see a shadow, like a shadow figure. Some may see another kind of entity. It all differs. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a famous piece of art here that was a painting done, I don't know if it was done in the Renaissance or later. I'm not sure what date this painting is, but I'm just going to do an insert here, and then I'm going to share my experience and then my late husband's experience. So I shall be with you in a second. Okay, so I've shown a couple of inserts there. One was of a painting done in the 1700s called The Nightmare, and then the other insert is the Night Hag out of the film Insidious. So in art then, going back around 300 years ago, this phenomenon was known, or this sleep paralysis problem was known. I mean, of course, it wouldn't have been called that then. Science wasn't as advanced then as it is today, and they would have genuinely thought it was a demon. Scientists today, and among them skeptics, might kind of tie this phenomenon in with sleep paralysis. There does seem to be a connection, because the reason in sleep paralysis that you are short of breath and you do feel restricted, particularly round the chest, is to prevent you acting out your dreams. So with that said, I'm going to talk about a couple of experiences. One's my own, and mine happened. I'm just filming around the caravan. The reason that I don't like being in front of a camera, so I just thought you could see my pretty caravan instead, with its altars there, its earth goddess altar over there, and its kind of nature mushroomy altar here. But we're digressing. Now my account happened, I would say about 15 years ago, and I was sleeping in the spare room. Now my husband my late husband rather, could sometimes snore very, very loudly, and this particular night he was snoring and it was so loud I couldn't sleep. So I just crept out of bed and went into the spare room, and the spare room was over the front of the high street in the town in Cumbria where I lived at the time. And I drifted off to sleep, and I woke up and my eyes were awake, but kind of from the shoulders down I could not move, but I was awake, I was alert. And I remember there was a coach load of Geordies, that is people that are from the northeastern England that have that sing-songy accent, that were getting on a coach, and I could hear their Geordie accents. And I remember thinking, we've had a load of Geordies come over to the town for the night. And at the same time that I was perceiving and hearing these Geordies and hearing the coach engine and all of that, I could see in the room a dark figure. Now it wasn't, I don't know whether it's an old hag, because this was a shadow, but it was in silhouette form, because it was standing in front of a window, and beyond the window was a street light. So it was kind of backlighting the shadow person or whatever it was I saw, but it was looming over me, and I was terrified, and I thought, I'm not going to let this get the better of me. And it was a struggle to speak, it was a struggle to move, and I willed myself. I thought, I'm going to speak here, so I'm going to warn you now, bad language is coming up. And I saw this being, entity, or whatever it was, and it was real. And as I was seeing it, I could still hear the Geordie blokes talking outside. And it was as real to me as this caravan room is. And I said to this figure, fuck off and leave me alone. Fuck off to the swamp where you came. And it went. It disappeared. And the room kind of settled, and slowly but surely I started to move. I started to have movement again. It was a terrifying experience, but what I think helped me was the fact that I could hear a coach load of blokes. I think they'd come over to see some match in a pub, I don't know, and I noticed that they had a Geordie accent, and that kind of kept me focused. Now, had it been like no one outside, no coach load of Geordies, I think it would have been a completely different picture. I was frightened, but I dealt with it, and I told it to go, and it disappeared. It just went. Now, the next story happened to my husband, and for this story, my husband was a Geordie. Well, he wasn't a Geordie really, but he was from that neck of the woods, so he had a very diluted Geordie accent coming from Durham. Now, when he lived in Durham, he was in a relationship 30 to 40, well, I don't know how long. I'm going back to the 80s, and in the 80s he was in a relationship with someone and living with them. And the two of them had a house in a little mining village in the northeast, in the County Durham area. And I know the house was next door to a pub. And my husband and this woman had a child together. It was from a one-night stand, which is why he set up home with her. But that's a whole other story that is irrelevant here. And the child was in one room, and my husband and his then partner were in another room. And every night my husband, he told me, he said, I was awoken by an old woman. He said she was horrible, she was evil. He said she would loom over me, she would pull up my bedclothes, she would sit on me. He said, and she was horrible and old, and she had claw-like fingers. And as he was telling me this, I could see this image in my mind's eye, and I said, did she wear like black and grey? Because I didn't see her in all black, I saw her in grey. I said, did she wear like black and grey? I said, and did she have really fine, long, straggly hair and really wrinkled and pale? And he said, yes. He said, how do you know? I said, I can just see her in my mind's eye. I said, I don't know how. I really don't know how. And he went, well, it happened several times. And my husband didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in anything like that. And he put it down to it being a dream. And he said it was a dream. However, his then partner witnessed something. Now, she didn't, admittedly, his then partner didn't see the old hag. But what she did see was, she saw my late husband. Well, it wasn't my late husband then. I wasn't married. I hadn't met Ken when this happened. So she saw Ken kind of tense, and he was asleep next to her, and then she saw his eyes flew open. Now, she didn't see anything in the room, but she was frightened because she saw, and she swore this on the life of the child that she'd had with Ken. She saw the blankets being pulled down the bed by unseen hands, and then she saw Ken being pulled down the bed by his feet by unseen hands. And she was terrified. And she woke him up, terrified, and explained. And he was saying it was a dream. And she said to him, if it was a dream, who moved the bed covers? She said, because I didn't. She was frozen in the bed, but she was awake. And she was clinging the covers to her, but could feel them being tugged away. and she saw him being dragged down the bed by his feet by unseen hands. And she told him this, and she said, and he couldn't answer it. So after that, and I can't believe the pair of them did that. They swapped bedrooms with the little baby. And I can't believe they did that. They put the baby in the bedroom that they'd been in, and they went into the baby's room. Now, apparently, once the baby went into that room, it all stopped. But prior to this, my late husband's sister and her husband had come to stay around about this time, and she had the same experience as my late husband did. And she also said it was a horrible room. I woke up and she was at the end of this bed, this old, horrible woman. So there's a couple of experiences for you that I thought I would mention. I hope I don't get a hag visitation tonight when I go to bed. But it is more common than you think. And the question is she some kind of spiritual or otherworldly or other realm entity? Or is it just a product of folk memory? Something that everybody experiences when they're in a sleep and the body is trying to stop them acting out the dreams, otherwise known as sleep paralysis. So I'm going to leave that thought with you, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I just want to wish you all a lovely weekend, and thank you for watching, and blessings.